I have some mandatory spring books that I want you to read or think about reading. You don't have to read them, but at least think about reading them. The first one that I want to talk about is a book that I think is a spring classic. Maybe I've talked about it before in relation to spring, but I'm going to talk about it again because I think it's amazing, and that is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Patti Smith. Now, baby, listen, okay? I feel an intense kinship to this book because this quite literally takes place in the neighborhood that I reside in right now, Greenpoint. Well, this is Williamsburg, but Greenpoint and Williamsburg flow together for me, okay? I'm about 2 steps away from Williamsburg. I resonate with this book so much. I'm a girl in the city, a little bit of different circumstances. This follows a young girl. It's a true Bildungsroman of living in poverty and essentially just chasing a dream. It's not centered primarily around her dream. It's centered also around the dreams of her mother, her father, immigrants living in a new place, a community coming together. This just embodies what it feels like to dream. And what I think I find so alluring about this book, and what feels especially spring-ish about this book, is that this is all about optimism. I relate to a lot of really dark books. I just made a whole video talking about interesting books that you should read, which I think veered towards a little bit of the darkness. But I am pretty much a lighthearted person, I would say, in my day-to-day life. And this book just mimics what it feels like to continue to strive for something and to be oddly optimistic in a world that feels like it's not made for you. I remember the first time I ever came across this book, I was in a Barnes & Noble when I was about, 13 years old. I saw this and I always had a dream of living in New York City. I always thought that that was where I was going to end up. I danced around the idea of living in LA. I spent a lot of time in LA when I was 20, and I always just found myself back in New York. And I'm only realizing this as I'm saying it now, but if that 13-year-old girl knew that she would live in the exact place that this book takes place, actually, it's really baffling to me. It's hitting me all right now that life is so full circle, whether we realize it or not. I think that this embodies spring. I think this embodies a lightheartedness, even in times of insane turmoil. The whole idea of a tree growing in Brooklyn is a tree being resilient in a place filled with stone. All of these outlying factors that make it suffocating, but it still perseveres. And this is a beautiful book. It's a classic for a reason. I think one of the best books written about a young girl and dreaming and becoming something. And I highly suggest this. And listen, that book is a perfect embodiment of spring. But you know what's also spring for me? Spring cleaning. And for me, I have been getting rid of a lot of my clothes and embracing a new wardrobe. And that is why I'm so happy to be partnering with LILYSILK on today's video. If you don't know what LILYSILK is, it is a high-quality brand focusing on sustainability, focusing on comfort, and focusing on luxury without having the luxury prices. And if you're looking at me right now, I'm wearing LILYSILK head to toe. Currently, I'm wearing the silk pinstripe shirt. And let me tell you, I feel like I've just rolled into the lap of luxury. What I like about this is it's incredibly smooth, glossy. I can tuck it in, leave it out. It feels a little bit oversized while still maintaining a beautiful shape. And on my bottoms is the bias cut silk skirt. Now, let me tell you, this is going to be the star of the whole show. I'm really a skirt girl. It's like the sweatpants of luxury. And with this, I love that it has a stretch elastic waistband, so I can wear it a little bit higher and a little bit lower. And what is so amazing about this silk is that it is machine washable. Let me repeat that again. Machine washable. Probably one of my favorite colors that I have ever worn. The seamless silk cotton slim fit knit top. Look at that blue. What is awesome about this is that it's so free moving. I find a lot of these like cinch shirts, they kind of confine you, and I have a problem with sweating when something's too close to my skin, but with this it is incredibly breathable. It's a blend of a fine silk and a cotton yarn, and it feels exceptionally soft. And if you want to talk about versatility, I can't go without just talking about a very simple basic. The one that I have is the silk knit tank. It's a mulberry silk and FSC certified viscose, so you have a nice stretch to it while still maintaining that luxury look. Or you could wear it with a wide leg trouser, and this is where LILYSILK silk contour fabric comes in. I have both the pants and the bralette, and let me tell you what, I am comfortable and fab. The silk contour fabric kind of follows the lines of your body without feeling like you can't move. It's made of second skin comfort lycra for a 4-way stretch with high recovery, and it moves with you. And to top it all off, you know I have shoes. There's a beautiful padding that feels like you could wear these for miles. Also have fabulous pillowcases. Pillowcases are so important for the health of your skin and for your hair. Silk is a natural antibacterial. How good is that? So if you would like to check out LILYSILK, you can do so by clicking the link in my bio. You can discover LILYSILK's premium everyday essentials from silk to cashmere, versatile and timeless, and designed to bring comfort and elegance into your daily life. Explore more on the LILYSILK website. Thank you so much to LILYSILK for sponsoring today's video, and let's continue on. The next couple of books that I want to talk about, this is more just highlighting a specific author. And when I think of spring, I think of a little bit of youthfulness coming out of me. I think this is going to be an oddly nostalgic video now that I'm realizing it, at least for these couple of picks, after I just talked about A Tree Grows in Brooklyn and how fundamental that felt for me as a young person navigating life. I feel very similarly about Patti Smith. I'm going to just recommend a couple of the Patti Smith books that I have read because I think they all fall under that same umbrella of discovery, of a new life, of a little bit of cleansing, and I associate these with sunshine and just moments that define us. I've read Devotion, which was a little bit more of a smaller of Smith's writing. I have read Wool Gathering, which feels also very particular to spring, but I would say the ones that really feel most approachable to a lot of people, and I think most people can relate to, are M Train, Year the Monkey, and of course, Just Kids. Probably one of the most important books, in my opinion, I would say, in the last 20 years for readers of a certain generation. I would also say specifically women of a certain generation, though I feel everybody can relate to a lot of the things that Smith is documenting in that book. It's just about growing up in these relationships that we form, these really impressive bonds that we will have with people, these inexplicable bonds that we end up having with people, and the reverence that Smith has for writing about a lot of her friendships. In Just Kids, she's talking about her relationship with Robert Mapplethorpe, who would become a huge American photographer. He would unfortunately pass away from AIDS, but it's just all about this caring, loving relationship that she has with him as she moved into New York City as kind of this wayward teen, and how she fell into love with Mapplethorpe and this entire group of artistic reachers, I guess we should say. And I feel particularly close to that because I think my story of coming to New York is kind of similar. I came here with not knowing a single soul, and I ended up meeting some of the most amazing characters that just changed me for the better, I think. And it really truly made me an independent person, an independent thinker. That sounds really cheesy. It moved me forward in a really positive way, and I don't think I would be in New York for that long if I didn't meet these people. And I think that Patti Smith writes so beautifully about friendship, and I always suggest all of her books because I think the way that she writes about this grounding love in our lives is so unparalleled in a lot of other writers, and she's just really great with framing nostalgic moments, and that feels like spring a little bit to me. Falling back in love with things or people that we might just see every single day and not really take the time to confirm, but she does it for us, and I love that. So yeah, all of Patti Smith's books feel very springy to me. The next book that I want to talk about is a book that I just finished reading, but feels oddly transformative to me. No, not oddly transformative. This book does feel transformative, and that is All Fours by Miranda July. Now, I know that this is an incredibly polarizing book for a lot of people. Some people hate it. Some people love it. Some people think it's like one of the worst books ever written. Some people think it's one of the best. I personally just felt I had an odd discovery with this book. I listened to this on audiobook, so July was reading it, and that really changed the experience for me. A lot of people, when they listened to the audiobook, hated July's voice, but I really liked it.
That show really is flawed, I said. Mel nailed it. My friends are always obliging me with ephemera like this.
I really was into it. It was so for me. This is all about a woman around 45 years old, I'd say. She plans to take a trip to New York City as a sort of congratulatory trip for earning this passive income over an ad. She's decided that she's going to drive because this feels like owning the trip and owning her age in a way. And she doesn't really get far. She gets about, 20, maybe 50 miles at most away from her home, and she surrenders herself to this town, this odd little town, and she coops up in this hotel room, and she starts decorating this hotel room. It's almost like she's nesting in an odd way, and she ends up having this intense infatuation with this local worker. That's probably my favorite part of the book. Then the book kind of veers in different directions, but it's all about exploring this second stage of your life. This main character is entering into perimenopause, so she's experiencing all of these symptoms of hormonal drops. There's this really illuminating part of the book where she's looking at a chart where hormones for men basically stay the same and hormones for women just go all the way down, and it's just this really scary chart to imagine as a woman. I mean, it was something that I don't even think about, and now I just am consciously thinking about it. The book does have a pretty fundamental shift where it's more about exploring relationships past this relationship with this guy that the main character meets, and it turns into much more of like ownership of your body again after feeling like you're losing control of it. I just thought it was really different, and I can always count on July for that experience with a book. I don't think it was the best thing I ever read, definitely not, and there's some things that I didn't love about it, but overall I had a pretty good experience with it, and I thought, yeah, I think it's a very July book, and I've been a fan of July for a while now. This book feels like spring because it really feels like a rebirth, and that quite literally happens to the main character, so yeah. I just want to put Lonesome Dove on there, okay? I want to put Lonesome Dove on there because I finally finished this book. I have been reading this for so long, and this is my Patreon book club pick from January, and I had to put it off, read another one, and then had to revisit it again, and now my book club can finally hear all of my thoughts on it. But this does also feel like a spring book. This doesn't feel like a winter book to me. Doesn't feel like a summer book necessarily. Doesn't really feel like a fall book. This feels like a spring book to me, and I'd be interested if you've read this, if you feel the same, even though a lot of this takes place primarily in Texas, which is hot. But they end up moving, okay? They end up moving to Nebraska, Montana. I don't want to give away too much if you haven't read this book. I do think I just would associate this with spring, also because, again, very transformative. This is a massively transformative novel for so many different characters. Oh my goodness. When I first got into this, I thought I was just going to be following the main couple of characters. But you branch off into like 15 character arcs, and you keep track of them pretty seamlessly because this is an incredibly well-written story. This follows the inhabitants of a small town called Lonesome Dove, okay? Very simple, very easy, that makes sense. Essentially just following the main character of Augustus and Captain Call, two kind of notorious Texas Rangers, and they lead this pack, this crew. First half of the book, I'd say, well, like the first 200 pages is just introducing their day-to-day life, and then a character called Jake Spoon is introduced, and he really is the instigator of everything. And from Jake Spoon's introduction is where the story really, really kicks off. You have wonderful characters. You have wonderful illustrations of how life was back then, how really life or death everything was. I would say life and death is probably one of the biggest themes I see in this. And that is why maybe I associate it with spring, you know, people passing and then people again continuing to persevere through the heaviness of it all. I finished it last night, and I'm so excited that I did because this is what I've been reading. I feel like I haven't been reading at all this year because I've just been reading like 10 books, and it's this. And then I'm just gonna throw a little funky one on there because I have been on a mission to read books from the early 2000s. I just read We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves by Karen Fowler, which I thought was okay. I wasn't in love with it. My response to that book is the classic A Visit to the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. I've read this twice in my life, and I'm not in love with this book, but this does feel like a spring book. And again, maybe I'm just associating it with spring because I read it both times when winter was dying off and spring was coming. I think it's a really not breezy read, but you're really sucked in with these characters. This is a bunch of short little stories that all seemingly tie in together, talking about the environment and talking about technology and talking about people's innermost fears and thoughts. I mean, that's very wide-ranging, but this was an incredibly popular book. I don't mind Egan's writing by any means, and I think that this has a really solid spring appeal to it. I think just how fast you're able to pace yourself through the chapters and how you're kind of looking for clues to assimilate certain stories into the other one makes it a really fast experience. And yeah, I just want to suggest that because I think that's a pretty easy spring book to get through. So after that, I am going to say Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck, because when I can throw John Steinbeck in, I'm throwing him in. This is a nonfiction read by John Steinbeck, but surely feels like a fiction read because it's Steinbeck and everything that he says is so eloquent and lyrical and beautiful and just okay. Do I need to explain myself further? No, I don't. John Steinbeck starts this book by talking about how he wrote so many different characters from so many different walks of life within the United States, but he never truly experienced a lot of those places that he writes about, which is also awesome that he's able to write about them so convincingly without actually having been to the places. So he sets off with his beloved dog Charlie, and he's just driving through the United States. I think this is really alluring for anybody who has spent time on the road in the United States. I've crossed the United States many times, 10,000 plus miles. I love being a little bit of a vagabond, and every single state truly is its own place. So having John Steinbeck narrate that feels really good, feels cool. When spring hits, I also just am always ready to travel. The moment that the sun just creeps out for a longer period of time, I think, it's great. It's a great time for me to just leave all my worries behind and just travel. And if I can't do that, I like just knowing that I have a book to take me on that journey, and Travels with Charlie is awesome. And to just wrap this all up, because I think the 90s are a hot subject right now, okay? JFK, Carolyn Bessette. My wardrobe looks like it's from the 90s. I'm going to talk about the 90s by Chuck Klosterman. This is just a fun book to really just get your 90s knowledge in. Just check off those boxes and say, yes, I do know about these certain weird things that were happening. Yes, I do know about I do know about Toby Keith, okay? This is just a cultural freaks check-in. Chuck Klosterman's pretty good about writing about stuff that has happened. That's such a great way to talk about an author. I'm sure if I was an author and somebody said she's good about writing about stuff that happened, I would put that as my bio. She's good about writing stuff that happened. Sorry, Chuck. I know we're on a first name basis. I'm so sorry that I just did that to you. Anyway, this is just fun and a really easy read. Just you can listen to it on audiobook or you can read it. You just check in, check out. You can carry this with you and just experience things. Everybody loves to romanticize the 90s. Now you can see what was actually happening. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't horrible. But it's talking about politics. It's talking about music. It's talking about technology, big technology boom. It's talking about sports. It's talking about TV, everything. Just all put together, and it's good. And it's fun, and I recommend it for spring because what else are you doing? Okay? What else are you doing? I'm so sorry. That's my winter energy coming out. So crazy. Oh my God. Stay down there. So there you have it, guys. Let me know what spring books you are going to be reading this year. I hope you found some that you loved. I hope you did. You guys are wonderful. You're fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you in the next one.